Hi, I'm Mr. Mullaney. This is a recap of our lesson about the eve of the French Revolution. The big idea was that social unrest, economic troubles, and the desire for political reforms led to the French Revolution. Our objectives for this lesson wanted to describe the social structure of the old regime, the Ancien Regime in France, outline why France faced economic troubles in 1789. 1789, very important year. Explain why Louis XVI called the Estates General. What's that? What he called it? What does that mean? We'll get into that. And summarize why a Paris crowd stormed the Bastille. All right, so the warm-up. How did the French aid the Americans in their revolution? They supplied troops, supplies, and foreign and financial aid. A little something you should think about. If you like that flag behind me, if you like the fact that that's our country's flag and not the Union Jack, then you owe a thank you note to the good people of France. They played a huge role in America and the patriots winning the American Revolution. On we go. The old regime. There were three estates in France as of 1789. And this had been the way for a while at this point. You have the clergy. That's the first estate. They pay no taxes. They have 10% of all the land. There was starting to be there was a rift between the high priests, who were like the elite of the Catholic Church, versus the parish, the local priests. They're identifying more with the third estate at this point. The first estate does provide schools, hospitals, orphanages for the people. The nobles, they are the second estate. They are the ones with the government jobs. They're in the army. They're the leaders in the army. They run the courts, okay? They own land. They hate absolutism. They don't want an absolute ruler, and they don't like the royal bureaucracy, and they're feeling a loss of their privilege because they didn't have to pay any taxes. All right, so they don't have to pay any taxes to King Louis. And nor does the clergy, the first estate. So who's paying the taxes? That would be the third estate. That's most of everybody. And they are the peasants, who are just the very, very poor people in France. And the bourgeoisie, as Tom Ritchie, another social studies teacher, says, the bourgeoisie, if you want to spell it correctly, but it's bourgeoisie. They're the up-and-coming middle class. And the third estate, led by the bourgeoisie, is their discontent with the fact that the nobles had the best job and the fact that they pay all the taxes. All right, when all these nobility and the church is so wealthy with all of its land, does not pay taxes. So you want to think about the social structure of the old regime, the fact that the taxes were paid by the very poorest, the overwhelming majority of everyone who was very poor, and the very, very upper crust elite first and second estates didn't pay any taxes. Your economic troubles. So France is having some problems here. They have deficit spending. They're spending more than the money they're collecting in taxes from the third estate. The burden of debt. 7 Years' War was expensive. The American Revolution was expensive. And the fact that King Louis lavished the court. And so he wants to increase taxes. There were poor harvests, economic problems. 1780s, the prices of farm goods soared. All right. Some reforms had been tried and failed. Louis XVI was a weak leader. He had an advisor, Jacques Necker, who said, tax the rich. So he was very popular with the third estate, and Louis promptly got rid of him because he said, I'm not going to tax the rich. So why did France face economic troubles in 1789? You want to talk about the fact that the tax base was way too low. You want to talk about the fact that there were poor harvests and the fact that the government was spending way too much money on wars such as the 7 Years' War, American Revolution, and Louis' court at palace at Versailles. All right, so the second day, we just reviewed the first day a little bit. We talk about that. And then Louis XVI decides to call an Estates General. Hadn't been called in a long, long time. And he says, estates, come meet, and we'll each vote as one estate. So remember, most of everybody, 90-something% of everyone's the third estate, but they get one vote and can be outvoted by the first and second estate. And he says, each estate should prepare, and it's this word right here, cahiers. Cahiers are notebooks with grievances. At the Estates General, these cahiers lead to calls for reform such as freedom of the press, fair taxes, and regular meetings. However, this is mostly the Third Estate agitating for these things. The Third Estate meets on its own and after the Estates General was convened in May 1789, and they take what's called the tennis court oath, where they declare themselves the National Assembly. The reason for this is they're constantly getting outvoted 2-1 by the First Estate, even though that's most of the people are in the Third Estate. They create a constitution and declare to stay. Take an oath to stay together until their constitution is enacted. They are then promptly locked out of the Estates General. You want to think about why Louis XVI called the Estates General. And the big thing here is he needed money. And so it was his best way to try to get money. But the fact that he was calling this thing showed how dire the situation had become. Bastille gets stormed. So, July 14th, 1789, 800 are assembled at the Bastille. It had some weapons that the locals wanted to get to. Soldiers shoot at them, but the mob then breaks in and is able to get those weapons. King Louis asked what it was to one of his advisors, and the advisor said, "It's a revolution." But King Louis didn't take it very seriously at the start. We watched a film about this, about the very beginnings, and you want to think about how storming the Bastille was a huge step towards revolution. And so that's it. That's our lesson of the beginnings of the French Revolution.